In today's video, I'm going to be covering all things money, tiny house, tax efficiencies, and on that last one, this is a bit of a weird one because, well, I might actually be giving up my British passport in order to become fully Swiss. Now, some of you might remember in 2020, I managed to get a Swiss passport, and the reasoning for me getting one was, well, I was about to leave my day job, and my dream has always been that when I'm fully self-employed, I can go and rent an Airbnb in, say, France, Italy, Switzerland for, I don't know, half of a year, work there, live there, and then if I get bored, I can go to another Airbnb in a different part of Europe. If I find my dream holiday house, I could buy it and then spend 2 years renovating it. And that has been a dream of mine forever. You've probably heard me say it 1,000,001 times. But because of Brexit, that kind of ruined that dream, because if you're a British resident, you can only spend a certain amount of time in Europe. So the way to counter that is either you get particular visas, permits, whatever, or another passport. Now, the Swiss passport allows me to move to pretty much anywhere in Europe, and I can spend as much time in Europe as I want. But there is another interesting thing with Switzerland, and that is tax. Now, yesterday I was at breakfast with some of my friends, and we were chatting about this, that, everything. To be honest, about 95% of the conversation was about cars. But anyway, my brother says to me, "Chris, you should really look into moving to Switzerland." And I was like, well, no, I always want to live in England. I love it here. And he was saying, well, yeah, you still can do that. You just need to spend a certain amount of time in Switzerland, which in the future you're probably going to be doing anyway. And his reasoning for why was, in Switzerland, there's particular cantons, and a canton is basically like a district of the area. I think there's 26 in Switzerland, kind of like how you've got, I don't know, Hampshire, Dorset, I guess it's kind of like that sort of thing in Switzerland. And if I bought a house in a canton called Zug, Z-U-G, that has a corporate tax of 11.85%. which I quite like the sound of, because that means I will have more money to go towards my emergency savings account, which isn't really like an emergency as in, the world's ending, everything's gone bad, I've gone bankrupt, can't get a job, and I've got bills to pay. That is not the emergency in question. The emergency is, I am getting older and I still have not bought a GT3 RS. I will happily eat instant noodles and just microwavable rice if it means that I've got a GT3 RS on my drive. And speaking of drives, have a look at the first house in question that I could potentially buy. As you can see, it might need a little bit of work. It's seen better days, as you can see right there. This thing, I can't remember what it's called. It's rotten and fallen down. As you can see, that's what it should be like. And in fact, all of this mulchiness is probably that rotten beam. It's also really interesting how it's big rocks, little rocks to fill in the gaps. I've never worked on a stone building, so this would be really enjoyable. I say enjoyable to do up. It's got a lot of problems. I'm gonna have to do a whole new roof. And from the looks of it, it's a stone roof, so that means that every single joint in my body is going to hate me even more than they do already. Now, the thing that I really like about this is it's 1, 2, 3 stories. You might notice the land is falling very, very quickly. In fact, I think you can see it. Oh, it's also not just one house. There's about 3 stone buildings attached to it. But as you can see, the land is falling away very quickly, and that is because this is lake fronted, meaning I own the entire woodland, which is about 5.5 acres, going straight down to a lake, which is a pretty cool position to be in. This is one of the buildings that I would need to do work, but imagine if I put a big glass window in here and this became my office. As you can see, this building has, well, it's got some work that needs to be done, and because I'm halfway up a mountain, getting materials and things there is going to be not particularly fun. But I think that's the chimney just there. Yeah, that is quite a lot of work. It's going to make me question every single day what on earth I'm doing. But, oh yeah, this is more of the outbuildings that it's got. It's basically an entire little village. And you might be thinking, God, I bet you that costs a lot. Well, if you just have a little look at the top left of the screen, ready? 3, 2, 1. Shut up. 23,000 euros for our 88 square metre house. Remember, the UK average house is 70 metres squared and it costs £270,000. How insane would that be? Now you might be thinking at this point, Chris, what about the tiny house? That's been your dream forever, and you are 100% right, but it also has been a dream of mine to have a house within Europe. I love England. I'm always going to spend an amount of time here, and this idea of me moving to Switzerland, Italy, France, wherever, that might not happen. But the thing that I love is when you have these visions or dreams, whatever you call them, the knock-on effects of starting like a conversation or thinking about something, you have no idea where it can end up. And also, before I forget, I've recently been getting approached quite a bit to do brand deals. Like, we're talking quite a few quid to chuck a story up on my Instagram or to mention something in a YouTube video. And the thing is I don't like it when I'm watching a YouTube video and say it's a 10-minute video and 2 minutes of it is a sponsored ad. And I think what irritates me even more is when it's got absolutely no relevance to me watching the video. Like, you can just tell that this person is just a complete and utter sellout. Now, having said that, I can actually now relate to those people who do it because, well, I've done YouTube for 3 years and I haven't made a single pound. I haven't covered the 10 quid a month for music rights, then the cost for Photoshop, then the camera payments, because I've gone through 1, 2, 3 GoPro drone, the new camera. That's a lot of money and I haven't made any of that money back. And then that's not even taking into account my time that it takes me to edit. And I'm no videographer or editor. I don't understand how this world works. So it takes me so long to edit and then do the voiceovers and then setting the camera up. And to do all of this for 3 years, and I'm still, well, every single month that I do YouTube, I'm losing, what, 300 quid a month? So over a year, that's 3,600 quid, times that by 3. We're getting on to, I've spent 10 grand since starting my YouTube channel, which would have paid for half of the tiny house. So that upsets me a little bit. You lot can tell me to get lost, I'm fine with that. But I've had an idea that I could create a weekly newsletter where basically I'm sending out everything from the £10,000 houses that I'm having to restrain myself from buying, because honestly, I genuinely, if I had more money, I would buy probably at this point 50 odd houses in Italy. I just don't have the money to be doing that. And then also, my life's a bit terrifying at the moment. I'm in WhatsApp group chats with genuine multi-millionaire developers who build the towns that you see in England, and there's a lot of perks that come with that. All of their tips and tricks that they pass on to me, I'm then going to pass it on to you. And I've also started writing little guides on like how to tile your bathroom, like an almost checklist that I can then email out to you. And then when it comes to you buying a flat, buying a house, your next bathroom renovation or whatever, you can then open up that email and it's all there for you. Now, at the time of recording this, I haven't come up with a price for it because, well, I don't want to take the mick with you lot, which is kind of the whole reason of me making this newsletter, is to prevent that. So the price for it, I don't really know at the point of making this video. So if you click the link in the description, you can see how much I've set the price for. And my whole thing when I'm setting this, just bear in mind, is I want it to be an amount of money that you don't even think twice about. That is the whole reason. I want to over deliver on the value and underprice it. So then maybe that can then cover YouTube, and that is just my biggest aim, that it starts covering itself. Now, if you're wondering what I'm up to, I'm just adding the remaining OSB boards to the walls. This is the first time I've ever used a router instead of, say, a normal circular saw to cut OSB. So as you can see, I'm actually never really using a circular saw. I'm just using full sheets, and then any offcuts, I just make sure the offcuts are big enough to allow an overhang. And then I use the router, which is just a spinning blade essentially that has a bearing which follows a straight edge, like for example the end of the tiny house running along that previous sheet of OSB. It allows you to get basically perfect edges, and it's so satisfying to use. You don't have to think, you don't ever mess up any cuts because you're not having to use your brain, and the less I use my brain, the better. I still haven't really figured out what I'm doing with the windows since I came up with this idea to use skylights as windows. Now, if you haven't watched that previous video, I had an idea that because I love the look of skylights, that I could use them as windows on the walls. And I've only got one example in my mind of seeing that, and that was on like a £4 or £5 million chalet that was a new build. And I can't explain how insane it looked. Now, I swear I took a photo of it, but I can't find that photo anywhere. And then when I look on Street View, as it's a new build, that chalet doesn't actually exist there. So basically this whole idea of skylight windows is all just being created in my head. Another thing that I'm still not sure about is the bath idea, and I really want to hear your lot's thought on that. If you remember, I mentioned putting a lowered shower tray. So essentially what it is you're stepping down into a shower. However, I want to be able to flood that entire area and create a bath as well. Now this obviously involves a lot more time and effort, and I don't know if it's worth the extra money, but because it's quite a unique thing, I think it might be worth doing. So what should I do? Shower tray, which costs like no money to do, or a bath, which will probably cost, I don't know, 4 times more money? Which would you rather? Have a bath and a shower, or just a shower? I'm also conscious that there's quite a lot of new people watching this channel, so I thought I'd quickly explain the latest layout for the tiny house. So as you can see, this is the sort of layout that I've got going on now. This area here, that is the private gates, and then this circle here, that is going to be one of those circle car spinning things. You might be thinking, Chris, how much is that going to cost? I don't know. I haven't really put too much thought into it. It's just an idea at this point. So knowing me, I'll go down this route and then I'll realise how much it costs and then I'll just delete it, because yeah, if it costs a load of money, there's no way I'm doing it. But I do think it would be a really cool thing to do. And you might be thinking, Chris, do you know anything about electricity and motors and all of the engineering that would be involved to move a 3-ton car and spin it? Absolutely not. One idea I've had is I get a metal sheet and then I put some ball bearings under it, and then I can like push on the front quarter panel of a car and then just manually using strength push the car around. Now you might also be thinking, why wouldn't you just turn the car around before you got into your house or as you're leaving? And that is a good point, and to be honest, explaining that to you just then made me go, this is a really stupid idea, but it would be quite cool. Now my thought for sort of like the ground area, I don't really like gravel. I think it would be nicer if I did the London dumb rich type resin gravel driveways, where it kind of looks like tarmac, but it kind of looks like gravel, and it's kind of in between. So that, I've heard, is actually very easy to do yourself. So I think I'm going to give that a go. And the reason I want it to be also a hard surface is I want to make a half court basketball court as well. You see, the thing is, this is what I love about DIY, is basically the only limit is your imagination and how delusional you can think with what you think you're capable of doing. Now anyway, back to the tiny house. As you can see, this is the bedroom area, this is the bathroom, and an idea that I've had for the bedroom is that I raise it on a little bit of a platform, so there's a kind of step to get up to the bed. And what that's going to allow me to do is, you see on the left and the right and the front of the bed, I'm essentially creating massive floor cupboards that then can have a little latch system, and I can lift the lid up and get clothes, whatever, out. It's like a massive chest of drawers that's just completely surrounding the bed, and then obviously you can walk on it to get into bed. But I just think that's a really smart way of keeping an entire free to walk walkway around the bed, but then also maximize storage, because as I've said before, this is 30 square meters. Well, it's actually less than 30 square meters when you take into account internal walls, like the kitchen. And that's something else that you've got to really bear in mind, is you need somewhere to put a boiler and like a water tank. Now, obviously that is a knock-on effect of having a bath, is that I'm going to need then a larger water tank. If it was just a shower, you could get away with typical caravan motorhome sort of shower setup with a very small boiler. But if I'm making a bath, that is actually a little bit bigger than a normal bath, so it's kind of like a little pool type area, and then I really want to put swimming pool lights in it. And also another thing that is worth mentioning is this floor plan is getting thought about in another way as well, and that is the fact that I've got permission for a bigger house than this tiny house. So therefore, if one day I want to extend this and get it to the full size that I've got permission for and add 1-2 bedrooms to it, that is all getting taken into consideration with this floor plan. So I can easily cut a hole through a particular wall, and that will then form a corridor to the next part of the house, which I might build in 3-4 years time. It's always worth spending a little bit of time future-proofing your project. Now, don't worry, I have seen all the messages and comments about planning, and I'm investing a huge amount of time building something for you lot. This is a huge topic, so I'm trying to pull all the information together and make it really easy to explain. So keep your eyes out, I'll be releasing that fairly soon. So if you don't mind, please sign up to the newsletter. That would be great. Like the video, subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next Thursday.